What would you do if a big earthquake suddenly hits you and your surroundings? What would happen to the buildings, cars, and even the people? How would everyone react and what would everyone do? What would happen with nature and houses? Today we will talk about huge earthquakes. The primary effects of earthquakes are ground shaking, ground rupture, landslides, tsunamis, and liquefaction. Fires are probably the single most important secondary effect of earthquakes. An average of 3.5 million people are affected by earthquakes every year. Earthquakes usually cause severe damage to urban centers, resulting in the loss of life and damage to homes and other infrastructure. Earthquakes are one of the most Earth's destructive forces. The seismic waves throughout the ground can destroy buildings, take lives, and cost tremendous amounts of money for loss and repair. Earthquakes of magnitude 7 and above can overturn heavy furniture and inflict considerable damage in ordinary buildings. So imagine what an even larger magnitude earthquake would do. For example, a 10 magnitude earthquake. A magnitude 10 quake would likely cause ground motions for up to an hour, with tsunami hitting while the shaking was still going on. According to the research, tsunami would continue for several days, causing damage to several Pacific Rim nations. It is said that a magnitude 9 earthquake on Richter's scale is an equivalent to release of energy by 25,000 nuclear bombs. So a 10.0 magnitude earthquake will be considered to be like dropping over 40,000 nuclear bombs at a time. The earthquake will be bad, but the aftershocks would make the area very unstable. If a 10.0 earthquake were to strike a major American city, it would be the most catastrophic earthquake to ever strike anywhere on the planet. The largest trembler ever recorded anywhere on Earth is a 9.5 earthquake occurred in Chile. According to The Insider, on July 4, 2019, Ridgecrest, California, was hit with a 6.4 magnitude earthquake and then a 7.1 just one day later. But neither of these compare to the one long-awaited big one, which scientists predict will eventually rattle the Golden Coast. But when it hits, what will that actually look like? Here's what experts say that could happen in the seconds, hours, and days after the big one. While experts can't know exactly when a quake will occur, they have a pretty good idea of where. California is located in a hot zone of fault lines. The most notorious of them is the San Andreas Fault. The city would end up being a write-off, to use insurers' terminology. If it were a truly major U.S. city, we could be talking about the world's first $1 trillion natural disaster. The total taxable property value that stands to be destroyed just in Los Angeles County is $1.26 trillion. If it were one of America's seismically prone crown jewel cities that was hit by this earthquake, for example Seattle, San Francisco, Los Angeles, St. Louis, or New York City, there might be some attempt at disaster relief for people who choose to stay. Government assistance to prevent insurance companies from going bankrupt and clearing off the rubble so the city didn't look perpetually ruined, a magnitude earthquake would be bad news. This is because the magnitude of an earthquake is proportional to the slip of the fault times the surface area. In other words, a large fault line that has a huge displacement would generate a much larger earthquake than a small fault line that generates a tiny rupture. Imagine the damage that build-up strain finally releases and breaks the rock along the fault. This causes the plates to shift a few feet all at once. The sudden release of energy creates seismic waves, and it's these waves that we feel as earthquakes. And Ball has experienced massive earthquakes in the past. The great 1906 San Francisco earthquake is one of the most significant earthquakes of all time. At 5:12 a.m. on the morning of April 18, a foreshock was built through the Bay Area. A strong nuclear reactor and power plants will be damaged, which will lead to explosions with the huge radiation emissions around the world. Even radiation, as if fires were not enough. For the end of the world, throughout the earthquake, huge cracks will be visible. That wraps up today's video. Do you fear this happening to the world one day? Can experts tell when the next big earthquake will come? How would every destroyed thing be repaired? And as always, thank you for watching.